أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah, we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We enter in this third night of commemoration in which we bring ourselves to the memory of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And as we reflect and as we commemorate, as we remember this individual who was and is the core to our identity as followers of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we can't help but bring ourselves to tears. We can't help but be emotional. We can't help but see the passion that runs through our veins and pumps in our heart. That when we hear the name Ali, that when we hear the name Al-Murtada, that when we hear the name, the title, the commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen, we are moved. The movement in our hearts, the movement of our minds, the movement of ourselves as individuals and as a collective community, as the followers of Ahlul Bayt, as the ones who have paid allegiance time and time again after the Holy Prophet, as he has instructed us to, in his saying, telling all of his believers, all of his followers, Man kuntu mawlah fahada aliyun mawlah. Whoever I am his master, Ali is his master. So we renew this pledge to the Holy Prophet. As he is our master, Ali is our master. And when we remember him, it is not merely a tragedy, a commemoration of a sad tale of events, but rather it is a statement of truth and a rejuvenation for our souls to realize and realign our hearts with what is truth. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, told us that Ali is with truth and the truth is with Ali. It turns wherever he turns. Now, in the Battle of Siffin, when the people were facing the situation between Muawiyah and Amir al-Mu'mineen, people were actually not so sure. Unfortunately, the situation of the time was one that was built upon anxieties, built upon strife, and built upon confusion that people were enduring at that time. So much so that Al-Ash'ath, who was in the ranks of Amir al-Mu'mineen, would tell him that, listen, I'm not going to move forward in this battle. We're tired. We don't want to fight. Our men want to live. So that when they saw the soldiers of Muawiyah come forth on that day, after Muawiyah had decided with Ibn al-As for a conspiracy that would bring about the victory of Muawiyah in swords, Muawiyah would send his soldiers out with spears raised high into the sky, and his soldiers would proclaim to the soldiers of Ali that we are to be ruled by the book of God and we only want peace. We do not want bloodshed. By God, this is the word of God on our spears and we want peace. Essentially, they waved the white flag. And at that point, the soldiers of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the factions amongst them that were led by Al-Ash'ath, were pushing for Imam Ali alayhi salam to agree to an arbitration, that we don't want to move forward in battle, but rather we want to see a peace come to be and let an arbitration take place and no more bloodshed happen. Mind you, it was in this same battle that Imam Ali alayhi salam time and time again at different instances would challenge Muawiyah outright and say, Muawiyah, let us not see the death of our soldiers and the Muslims be any longer, be any further, but rather come and face me out on the battlefield and claim your fame, claim your authority. You are challenging the caliphate and you believe it to be rightfully yours. You're avenging the blood of Uthman, which you know I am innocent of or innocent from. Come and claim your fame. Claim the authority that you wish to take. But Muawiyah would not go forward. He knew he could not challenge Amir al-Mu'mineen in an open battlefield. So he resorted to other tactics. The conspiracy of at-tahkim, or the arbitration, became as follows, where they pushed forward into the middle of the battlefield and raised the Quran on these spears. And a number of soldiers would follow after that one individual went forward. The soldiers within Ali's ranks became confused and were saying, you know what? Let's consider this arbitration. Al-Ash'ath pushed heavily on that side. Unbeknownst to many of the soldiers within the ranks of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Al-Ash'ath was having secret negotiations and secret messages being received from Uqba ibn Abi Sufyan, the brother of Muawiyah. And he was telling him, let's get this done. Let's save the blood of the Muslims and let's take care of one another. We don't want battle, we don't want war. Al-Ash'ath would go to Imam Ali alayhi salam, though he knew what was going on. And though Imam Ali alayhi salam was of the wisdom to tell his soldiers that I'm of a different opinion than you, I wish to pursue in battle. However, if you don't have the stomach for war and you want this arbitration, let it be so. So when the arbitration came, Imam Ali alayhi salam would be again faced with Al-Ash'ath as the days were coming closer to the final arbitration that would take place, again known as a tahkim. And Al-Ash'ath would tell Imam Ali alayhi salam, let me go and negotiate on our behalf, on your behalf, so that I can see what Muawiyah wants. Imam Ali alayhi salam consented. And Al-Ash'ath went forward. He met with Muawiyah. He met with Ibn al-As. He met with Uqba ibn Abi Sufyan, Muawiyah's brother. And at that time, Muawiyah would greet Al-Ash'ath with open arms. You see, Muawiyah was able to use his ability in cunning, in wit, in a facade of humbleness and humility so that people could come his way. Al-Ash'ath would ask Muawiyah, "Oh Muawiyah, why did you choose to have the soldiers come forward with the book of God on their spears? Why not something else? Why did you do that in particular?" He said that we want the book of God to rule between us and we want to stop the bloodshed. We want an end to this and we want peace. And let the book of God, let God decide between us. Moved by his words, Al-Ash'ath said, you know, this is the truth. He went back to the camp of Imam Ali alayhi salam and they decided that he was to have an appointment of who would be the arbitrator from their side with the arbitrator of Muawiyah's side. The arbitrator from Muawiyah's side in the camp of the Umayyads would be no other than Ibn al-As. Muawiyah didn't want anybody other than him, who was the architect behind this idea, this conspiracy, to achieve the goal that Muawiyah wanted, which was to avert himself and his soldiers from an annihilation, a defeat that they knew was only imminent against the forces of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and then have an upper hand later on when the time was right. Ibn al-As would become the arbitrator on behalf of the Umayyads. And on Imam Ali's side, Imam Ali alayhi salam wanted to choose Abdullah ibn Abbas, his cousin. Al-Ash'ath stood against this so sternly. He said, we won't accept Abdullah ibn Abbas and they won't accept him either. They know that Abdullah ibn Abbas is your cousin, he's your relative, and he has such a strong stance as you, and that is the stance to continue on further in battle. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, okay, then we'll pick someone else. Let's pick Malik al-Ashtar. Al-Ash'ath turns around and looks in his midst, looks at the people around him and says, really, is there no one for us but Malik? By God, we cannot have Malik represent us. He's the same as Abdullah and the same as you. Imam Ali alayhi salam then told him, then who would you choose? They would push forward Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was a weak, frail old man, and his faith and his conviction was even weaker than his body. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was actually one who had deserted battle in the Battle of the Camel, in the Battle of Ma'arakat al-Jamal previously, under the leadership of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And history tells us that he actually wasn't even found in the public's eye until a month after the battle had ended. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was not somebody to represent the forces of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But Al-Ash'ath did a great job in rallying people around him. And the more that Imam Ali alayhi salam opposed the position of Al-Ash'ari being the representative in this arbitration, the more Al-Ash'ari got people to rally behind the idea and push for Al-Ash'ari to be the representative, to be the arbitrator. In fact, Al-Ash'ari would say that if Abu Musa al-Ash'ari is not our representative, not our arbitrator in this, then we will not do anything on your side. In fact, we will bring upon your death and the death of your forces. Al-Ash'ari had the audacity to basically say that it was either this way or no other way. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, to contain the unity amongst his forces and to quiet this rebellion that was about to take place amongst the forces, the factions that had become loyal to Al-Ash'ath in his stance of wanting to bring about peace, supposedly, when they were actually threatening the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam and threatening mutiny. Imam Ali alayhi salam didn't want that mutiny to take place and have the forces from Syria, the Umayyads, come and rain on them with their spears and with their swords and with their arrows, knowing that there was disunity in their ranks. So Imam Ali alayhi salam acquiesced, and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari would become the representative, the arbitrator on their side. Abu Musa and Ibn al-As would meet. They would meet and they would discuss. Abu Musa would put up this facade that he was listening and contemplating the options that Ibn al-As was discussing, but really he was already in his pocket. When they came to the decision of discussing or putting actually on display, the public display of what the result of the arbitration would be, as this arbitrator from Muawiyah's side and this arbitrator from Imam Ali alayhi salam's side, to decide what would be the outcome of the battle. They would come forward and they would agree that they would say the same exact thing, mirror their testimony to one another. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was warned by a number of the companions that were in the forces of Imam Ali alayhi salam not to fall for the tricks of Muawiyah and Ibn al-As. Abu Musa just nodded and said that he'll take care of it. When the time came, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari would step forward, standing next to Ibn al-As, and say that by God, we've come to a decision. And that he would like Ibn al-As to declare and tell the people what they agreed to. Ibn al-As would stand up and say, Abu Musa, how dare I come and speak before you when you are older than me or greater than me in age and have come into Islam and into the message before I have. You are the one who was representative of the people of Yemen to the Prophet, and God's messenger pointed you as his messenger to the people of Yemen. I could not speak before you out of respect for you and your greatness. Praising him with this facade of praises. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, taking in and falling for this vanity of praise, he consented. Abdullah bin Abbas' story writes that he would actually stand up and shout to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari and tell him, Abu Musa, do not fall for this trick. He is putting you in the place that he wants. If you have decided something between you and him, make sure that he says it before you do, because he's going to trap you. He said this openly in front of everyone else. But Abu Musa, with this false sense of confidence, disagreed and continued on. He said that we have decided that both Ali and Muawiyah are not fit to rule, and both of them are at fault. That I disown Ali as my leader and I disown Muawiyah as the opposition. And that it is up to the people to elect amongst themselves, to appoint amongst themselves a chief, a noble, someone to rule over them that they deem fit. Then he sat down. Ibn al-As would step forward smiling. And he would say, you heard it from the man himself. He disowned his leader. He disowned Ali. So I too disown Ali, and I appoint, and I elect, and I choose for my leader, Muawiyah, to reign over us, as he is the just one, and he is deserving of this position. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari supposedly is caught by surprise, looks at Ibn al-As and says, how dare you? You tricked me. How did you put me in this position? You're like a dog and began saying all these derogatory terms to him, using the phrase saying, "You're like a dog, that whether you leave him or you bring him towards you, he will continue to be panting like a dog." Ibn al-As looks at Al-Ash'ari and tells him simply, he smugly says, "And you're like a donkey, you just carry weight." Al-Ash'ari was fooled. He thought that he was going to have lunch, and he ended up being lunch itself. At this point in time, the Khawarij and at this point of time, the individuals that were with Al-Ash'ath, that they were moving for this position of Al-Ash'ath, which was to have this arbitration, they felt fooled, and they essentially looked and said, "You know what? This is not the position that we're going to agree to, and we're going to continue on in war." So they turned back to Amir al-Mu'mineen and they told him, "Let's continue in battle." Imam Ali alayhi salam said, "Absolutely not. This was a truce that we agreed to, and the truce is going to be observed. Any public recognition, any publicly recognized document or contract, whether it was in public or in private, if there was a contract agreement that was assented to, Amir al-Mu'mineen was a part of that contract, a part of that agreement, he was going to abide by it. There was no other choice." He told them that this was something that you brought upon yourselves. I advised you against it, and I told you that this was not the way forward. But as your leader, I was not going to force you into anything, but rather you forced me to accept the position that you wanted to take. So this is the result. You didn't have the foresight to see the possible consequences of this, but this is the result. We will observe the truce. And the truce was to be observed in the fact that one of the elements, the 4 elements of the truce, was that there would be a ceasefire, no engagement in military conflict for 1 year. The people of Syria would return to Syria, and the people of Iraq would return to Iraq. These individuals that were from the factions of Al-Ash'ath, who were so ardently against the Imam and continuing in war initially, but wanted arbitration as for this belief that they wanted to save the Muslims and not continue on in battle, now they wanted battle more than anything. And because of this position that Imam Ali alayhi salam had in opposing them and telling them this was your responsibility, we entered into the truce, we're going to observe the truce, they decided to defect from his army. These individuals, the individuals that followed in this path, would become known as the Khawarij or the Kharijites. The Khawarij would then mobilize their own forces and actually take position to fight Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in what would be the Battle of Nahrawan. Now, building up to the Battle of Nahrawan, the Khawarij would continue to cause havoc and chaos in the nation of Ali ibn Abi Talib. There's one incident just to describe how wretched some of these individuals were, how ruthless they were. Was a group of Khawarij would find one of the sons of one of the companions of the Prophet. His name is Abdullah. Abdullah was walking one day with his pregnant wife, and his pregnant wife was full term. She was due any day. When they saw him, they asked him, a group of them, it was a gang of them, they surrounded him and his wife. They stopped him at a river bank, and they asked him, "Who are you? What's your name?" He said, "My name is Abdullah." And he mentioned his lineage, his descendant, as a descendant of being an individual who was from the line of companions. The young man simply minding his own business and walking along with his pregnant wife. They surrounded him in a way that really made him nervous. They told him, "You have nothing to worry about. Why are you nervous? Are we making you nervous? Are we intimidating you?" And he said, "Honestly, yes." When they asked him about his relationship to the Prophet, he said, "Do you know any narrations from Rasulullah?" And he said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Well, tell us." He said, "The Prophet ﷺ said that there will come a time of sedition." And he began to describe that time of sedition, that time of fitna. And it matched very similarly to the time that they were experiencing. The Khawarij grabbed him and grabbed his wife and said, "This is exactly what we were looking for. This is exactly what we wanted to hear." Mind you, that right before they grabbed him and they asked him about this narration, they asked him about what he heard from the Prophet, they also asked him, "What do you think about Amir al-Mu'mineen?" what do you think about Ali ibn Abi Talib? They said, of course, he is Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful, and he is one who has come with justice and with truth. Upon hearing this and upon hearing that narration, they grabbed him, they grabbed his wife, and they wrapped their legs and wrapped their arms and took them by the river bank. While this was happening, one of the men went and sat under a date tree to get some shade under the scorching sun. Another one of them grabbed the wild hog and took it to slaughter it at the riverbank. As they were slaughtering the wild hog, another one of the men amongst them began to yell at him and say, how are you taking this wild hog? It belongs to this Christian family that just lives down the road. You have to go and apologize from this man because you've taken something of his property, of his own. Another one began to yell at the man who sat under the date tree, who began picking at the dates that had fallen from the tree and eating from them. He said, how can you eat from this tree when this tree is not yours and it belongs to somebody else? Abdullah, seeing that these men were so particular to what they were eating and what they were killing and what was theirs and what was not, and observing the property and the rights of others, he said, I'm sure that you guys would not hurt me. And you said that I'm safe with you and I shouldn't be nervous. I'm a believer. I'm a Muslim just like you. Please don't hurt me and don't hurt my family. Don't hurt my wife. They did not heed to any of his calls, but instead they took Abdullah and they slaughtered him. They threw him in the river. His wife was watching all of this. And she said, please, I'm just a woman. Leave me be. Please, don't hurt me. You've killed my husband. Please spare some mercy. Again, they wouldn't reply. And they would take her and slaughter her and take the baby out of her womb and kill the baby itself. This scene was told to the people of the Ummah, and people were outraged. That how is this group of people, these extremists, going about and killing people simply because they didn't believe what they believed, simply because they didn't agree to the things that they felt that was so important. These individuals wanted to face off in war with Imam Ali alayhi salam, and Imam Ali alayhi salam didn't hesitate. He wanted to put a close and shut this down as quickly as possible, because these individuals showed no mercy to man, woman, child, or anyone. So Imam Ali alayhi salam would face off with these men in Iraq. And at one point, he would come to see a force of about 6,000 men that wanted to face off and fight him. He would send Abdullah bin Abbas to go and give them warning, as he did in every situation, in every instance that he would face off in battle. He always put the burden of proof on the other side, telling them, listen, why are you fighting us? What is the reason? What's your justification? Are we not from the Holy Prophet? Are we not from this position? Are we not Muslim? Are we not believers? Are we not, etc., etc., putting every single burden of proof onto the individual, onto the other side, to see, can we not come to something where it does not result in the bloodshed of people? And that is your responsibility, and that blood is going to be on your hands. You see this kind of position taken by Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in every situation that they faced when they were in battle. Now, Abdullah bin Abbas was sent by Imam Ali alayhi salam to reason with them, but they would not listen, and his calls would fall on deaf ears. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, before engaging in war, would come out to them and would tell them, are you going to pursue this battle? Why are you pursuing this? And they said, because you accepted the arbitration, and arbitration is only for God. They said that you are to repent, O Ali. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, I repent from all misdeeds and all sins. They took that as Imam Ali alayhi salam admitting to guilt, which he did not. But Imam Ali alayhi salam was showing them the key to making sure that they understood where leadership lied. He told them that he had no sin, he had no fault. But if they wish to hear him say that he is to repent, he repents in every moment, in every situation, even though he didn't have wrong. And it's amazing that even if you were to contemplate of the words of the Imams, the ones who taught us supplication and the way to be before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our position with God, even though we are sinless, even if we are sinless and we are immaculate, as the Imams would be, they would always repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and bring themselves closer to Him. But just to show and illustrate the limitation of these individuals in their minds and how they saw the Imam and their lack of understanding of what belief was, when they heard him say that, they said, okay, we're fine. They actually came into the fold of the Imam and they left the battlefield. They would go on into the city and begin spreading rumors that Imam Ali alayhi salam admitted to his fault of the arbitration with Muawiyah and of the truce that he entered with Muawiyah. Imam Ali alayhi salam, as soon as he heard that, he would ascend the pulpit and he would say, making the record clear, no fault was committed, that the people within the forces of Imam Ali alayhi salam, which they were a part of, they pushed for this, they wanted this, and because they were not happy with the result, they ended up flipping and charging against me. And in fact, Imam Ali alayhi salam would time and time again make it clear that he was the first in battle, that he was the first one to fight off and ward off injustice and these individuals that were coming from the side of Muawiyah, coming from Syria, that wanted to challenge the authority of the caliphate of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, I have no admission of guilt. There is no sin that I have committed. There is no issue at hand. And that they are spreading falsehood. At this point, some of them realized what it was. Others went back to the battlefield. And Imam Ali alayhi salam would finally face them off in Nahrawan. In Nahrawan, Imam Ali alayhi salam would see his victory. And though the battle was swift and Imam Ali alayhi salam would reign victorious, the outcome of the battle was not one that was merely to be seen as quelling all of these individuals who had fought Amir al-Mu'mineen. In fact, though many of the individuals who defected from the army and became from the Khawarij, when they entered into battle with Amir al-Mu'mineen at Nahrawan, many of them were killed. However, Muawiyah continued to utilize these individuals, utilize the people, even though they didn't even realize it, to continue to cause pressure and continue to cause havoc in the ummah, in the nation, where Imam Ali alayhi salam was being attacked from a number of different areas. There were certain cities like Al-Madain that were being attacked by the forces of Muawiyah, though Imam Ali alayhi salam was trying to deal with the Khawarij. And at times where Imam Ali alayhi salam was trying to rally his own forces to respond to the forces of Muawiyah that were attacking and ransacking Al-Madain and Al-Anbar, Imam Ali alayhi salam would be too late to respond to them because his own forces were too lazy and too slow to respond to the situation, in which Imam Ali alayhi salam would address his forces at one point and say, O men, or O resemblance of men who are not men, how much you have let me down, and how I complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you and these individuals who essentially were responsible because of their lack of responsiveness to Amir al-Mu'mineen in rallying themselves to fight off the threat and fight off the armies that ransacked these villages in these towns like Al-Anbar and Al-Madain. The Imam Ali alayhi salam was so devastated because innocent people were killed and innocent people's homes were destroyed. Imam Ali alayhi salam faced the situation where after the battles of the Camel, of Siffin, of Nahrawan, even though he would be victorious in every one of those battles, even though he would not be defeated, it was just too much. And the forces of the Caliphate, the forces of Imam Ali alayhi salam at that time were simply not enough in warding off the continued threat, the propaganda machine that Muawiyah had been mobilizing for years and years. Now, when it came to the final year in which Imam Ali alayhi salam was living and trying to handle all of these situations, Imam Ali alayhi salam his life would be taken by one of the Khawarij. Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam was an individual who was amongst these defectors, amongst these Kharijites. And they decided, three Khawarij, they decided an assassination plot that they wanted to kill the three heads of this ordeal. They wanted to kill Muawiyah ibn al-As and Amir al-Mu'mineen. The life of Muawiyah and the life of ibn al-As were spared. This was all going to take place while these individuals were in prayer and leading their congregations in prayer. Muawiyah, they say that when he went to go and have the prayer, that the individual that came forward to kill Muawiyah and have his life and assassinate him, that he became scared and wasn't able to complete the task. And instead, when he went to go stab him or strike him with the sword, also supposedly with his poison-dipped sword, when he went to go strike him, he would actually land and strike him on his side instead of striking him on his head or in a place that would be a fatal blow. When it came to Ibn al-As, it was found that Ibn al-As wasn't praying that day, and instead someone else was praying for the congregation that he was supposed to be leading, and that the Khariji that went to go kill him instead killed another man who was leading the prayer. But with Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, it was Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam, and he was successful in striking Amir al-Mu'mineen on his head. In that time, when Imam Ali alayhi salam, as he would rise in his prayer, he would raise his voice and say, Fustu Rabbul Kaaba, I am victorious by the Lord of the Kaaba. Brothers and sisters, we take ourselves back to these final days in the tragedy of Amir al-Mu'mineen. After seeing the historical context and analyzing the scene, analyzing the situation in which the Ummah had brought itself to a position, though Imam Ali alayhi salam, and his goal was to establish the standard of just governance in which people would understand what is the difference between a just leader and an unjust leader. He would be that standard, so that when compared to those that came before him and compared to those that would come after him, Muawiyah and the likes, that people could decipher what was the true leadership that the Prophet envisioned, what was the community that the Prophet wanted to see, what was the nation of Muhammad supposed to look like, what was it supposed to be led by. Imam Ali alayhi salam, though some people would later on come and see that Muawiyah eventually would be victorious from a temporal sense, from a political establishment sense, Imam Ali alayhi salam was the one that was victorious. And he made that known. Why? Because every moment of his life, every breath he took, every step he made was in service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there was no second guessing that. There was no second doubts about that. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he established for us what it meant to be a true servant of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And he manifested all of those attributes and those virtues in that vision of Muhammad and what he would see as this is the community after me. This is the holding on to me, holding on to the Quran, holding on so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you. Ali ibn Abi Talib was that perfect, complete human being. That complete human being that his daughters and his sons lost. That complete human being that the orphans of Kufa would cry over. That complete human being that would no longer be able to deliver food and water and toys and treats for the young orphans of Kufa. That complete human being that though he was at the helm and though that he ruled over an empire, he would find himself in the marketplace caring for people that nobody cared for. That complete human being that saw God in everything. That complete human being that would tell his companions that worship God in a way that if you don't see him, which I do, know that he sees you. Amir al-Mu'mineen, in these nights we remember him. If I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Ali? Will you remember his tragedy? If I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Ali? Will you remember his tragedy? If I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Ali? Will you remember his tragedy? Orphans would call one name, and they wouldn't cease in their cries. One name, three letters, they would continue to sing and praise in the cold nights that followed. Ali, 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 Ali. And that final night, as his sons and daughters came and surrounded him, waiting at his bedside, waiting for his any call, just to serve him, just to help him, just to comfort him. Imam Ali would turn to his son and he would say, "My son Hassan, when I die, in these moments that are coming soon, when I die, I want you to watch my body. I want you to pray over me. I want you to cloak my body. I want you to pray over me, my son, my son." And Imam al-Hassan would see his father, tears rolling down his cheeks. And Imam al-Hassan would tell him, "Abata, ya Ali, you're breaking my heart." Imam Ali, tears in his eyes. He would look to Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein once again and he would tell them, "My sons, my sons, I am leaving you in a time of great sedition. I am leaving you in a time in which you will be attacked, in which you will be harmed. My sons, care for one another. My sons, protect one another. My sons, my sons." Imagine Amir al-Mu'mineen as he is sitting, as he is lying on his bed, and his son Imam al-Hassan and his son Imam al-Hussein are holding his hands, trying to comfort him in his last moments. He turns to them and he says once again, "My sons, my sons, you will be killed and you will be oppressed. Oh Hassan, you will be killed by poison." He is crying over Al-Hassan. Al-Hussein is crying over Al-Hassan. They're crying over their father. An emotional moment, shedding these tears. He turns to Al-Hussein and he says, "As for you, my son Hussein, you are the shaheed of this ummah. You are the martyr of this nation. كأني," it is as if I see your body on the land of Karbala, severed with no head, stain the sands of those lands. My son Hussein, they will have killed you, they will have oppressed you, they will have taken your body and trampled upon it with the horses. Then enters Zainab. Then enters Zainab, and she says, "Father, Father, what will happen to us? What will happen to me and my sisters if this is to take place to Hussein? If this is to take place to Al-Hassan?" He tells her, "My daughter, you will be estranged in our lands. years, you will be taken from city to city. They will torture you. They will hurt you. They will imprison you as a captive of war. My daughter Zainab, you must have the strength on those days. Zainab was trying to hold back her tears as she didn't want her father Ali to see her in those tears. Don't you know that Zainab was the Aziza on the heart? She was so hard. She was so important to Imam Ali. She was so dear to the heart of Ali. She didn't want to upset him. She didn't want to add to his agony. She didn't want to pain her father with her tears. But Zainab couldn't hold back any longer, and the tears would flow. He would hold on to her face and he would tell her, "Oh Zainab, do not fear. Oh Zainab, do not fear. Oh Zainab, do not fear. I can't bear to see you like this. Please, Zainab, do not fear. Do not shed a tear. Hold on to your strength and know that Allah will protect you. Know that Allah will not leave you. Listen, my dear. Listen, my Zainab. Listen, Habibati, Azizati, Ibnati Zainab. She says, Father, oh Father Ali, how can we handle all of this without you? As we see on the day of Karbala, as the poet would describe, Zainab would look out into the lands and see the fallen bodies of her brothers, of her sons, of her cousins, of her nephews, of the companions of Al-Hussein. She would see all of this. 18 years later, this would all be played in front of her, and she would turn to Najaf, turn to the grave of her father, and she would say, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, أين أنت يا علي يا علي ولا علي لي اليوم. Oh Ali, where are you, my father Ali? But there is no Ali for me today. الإمام أمير المؤمنين, his soul, before he would depart, he would tell his sons and his daughters, في أمان الله, في أمان الله, in the protection of God, I leave you, my sons, my daughters. They would reply back to Amir al-Mu'mineen, في أمان الله يا أبتاه, في أمان الله يا أبتاه, في أمان الله. Oh Father Ali, في أمان الله يا علي. We call unto the commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. يا علي. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون، والعاقبة للمتقين. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. إلهي بحق علي، اللهم لعن قتلة أمير المؤمنين، اللهم لعن قتلة أمير المؤمنين، اللهم لعن قتلة أمير المؤمنين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, let us recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and after it, another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.